Welcome to you all. This is the Black Design Collective, and my name is Lola Wusu, and today we are here with Brea Stinson. She is one of the first thoughts for an artist that wants a show-stopping look for often very short time frames. She's worked from artists like Jay-Z, Stevie Wonder, Missy Elliott, Zayn Malik, Rita Ora, Demi Lovato, TLC, DJ Khaled, Beyonce, Will Smith, all of your favorite people. Apparently she knows has worked with. She recently just celebrated her birthday in like the biggest way, which I think is amazing actually. But she showed off her a timeline of installations of her collections of work, and she did a soft launch for her ready-to-wear line. So she's in a fun, unique transition. I'm so excited to get to know you and for you to share your story. So welcome, Brea.
Oh, thank you. That was such a good intro.
Oh, thank you. You did that, so it wasn't hard.
Thank you.
So let's get to know you a little. So I know that both of your parents were fashion enthusiasts with a background in retail. So, and you taught yourself how to sew on your grandmother's sewing machine, which is like, I have a very similar story, but I wasn't as successful as you taught yourself.
Oh no, it started off really humble. I was making a lot of like stretchy stripper costumes for people down in Atlanta when I first got started. So it wasn't that glorious. It was quite humble.
Okay. I still will not show anybody my prom dress, and whoever has pictures,
send it to me later.
Right,
we'll just between you and I.
Exactly. But yeah, so you eventually attended Clark Atlanta. What did you study in college?
I got my degree in business.
Oh, great.
Yeah, concentration in marketing.
Wow, that is really awesome for somebody who is such a fashion enthusiast to know to go into business. Right.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure at the time, but I generally always worked for myself. So I just thought, let me just get the background in business because it'll help me with whatever I decide to go into.
I'm sure it has. That's amazing. So after that, a classmate introduced you to Tamika Foster, whose clients at the time included Toni Braxton, Lauryn Hill, Genuine, Patti LaBelle, Usher, a million people apparently that we all love. But so you worked with her for 3 years right out of college, which is amazing to get that type of exposure. But for somebody who started off in business, you go into styling. What was your thought process in terms of your like trajectory? Because I feel like you wanted to become a designer. How did that business to styling go?
Well, yeah, I was doing a little bit of designing while I was in school, and I actually opened up like a small boutique in this like flea market type of setting. So that's what kind of helped me to like buy books, food, and just like survive college.
Yeah.
And in that's what made my classmate Courtney introduce me to her boss. She was her administrative assistant at the time. And I actually didn't know that wardrobe styling was like an actual career. I had, heard of like Misa Hilton, who was doing like Little Kim when I was in high school, and worked with Mary J. Blige, and I was obsessed with both of them. But I thought just like this single unicorn. It didn't dawn on me that the industry required that type of service. I just thought that my favorite people were just fly, and that's just who they were. You know what I mean? And so meeting Tamika, I was able to actually see from a different angle, like what has to happen before it makes it to the music video or the album packaging. And I was allowed to like sit in on set, and she would have me bring my sewing machine. I would do small alterations and help her set up. So that was another thing too, is that seeing the setup process, knowing that the photographer tells you they want to shoot 4 looks, you still got to have like 2 racks of clothes and options. And just that whole process, it just opened my eyes to to so much.
Right.
So that was really, really helpful. And after I graduated, I moved to New York, and she basically was like, you know, do you want to be my assistant? Because she lived in Atlanta. So I was the key person that was going to the showrooms, and I was allowed to see a different aspect of it again. Go to the showrooms, interact with the salespeople, the PR teams, and learning about samples and that whole process of being able to see the pieces after they leave a runway show. And those are the items that you get for your clients because you want them to be in things before they reach retail. So awesome. It was just a whole nother thing that I was allowed to like see and learn about. And it was great.
That's amazing. So obviously there's a difference between the New York and the Atlanta, but would you say like the biggest thing was just the fact that it was like a fashion mecca, or like what did you learn differently from styling in New York as opposed to styling in Atlanta?
Well, a couple stylists that I ran into in Atlanta, it wasn't so much, I wouldn't call it wardrobe styling, it was more personal shopping because there were no showrooms in Atlanta.
Right.
And unless you had those contacts to have someone from New York or from an LA showroom to send you things, or even from Italy to send you things, you were more of a, and I don't want to offend anybody, but it's more personal shopping when you're going into retail and styling looks for your clients.
Interesting. I just always wanted to know. I haven't lived in New York, nor have I lived in Atlanta. However, I've heard and have talked to enough people, but just so people know the difference and who are thinking of moving. I know some people who are.
Yeah, and in New York, you get to experience just the energy of it all, and there's an entire like manufacturing and fashion district, and you can literally see the inner workings of the industry, from the fabric stores to the sewers, the production houses. So you can kind of see the process from start to finish once you even know that area exists. It's its own little world.
So apparently you liked it because you stayed for almost 10 years in styling, and that became your world. So knowing, I read in an interview that your trajectory, you wanted to design. Of course, you started off designing, you ended up styling, and now you're designing again. So what did styling teach you and aid you into your success as a designer?
Like I said, I got to see the inner workings of it all.
Yeah.
So it's helped me in a lot of ways because I met a lot of store owners, boutique owners. I also got to see the inner workings of a PR showroom to know that once I was ready to commit to designing, I kind of have my network in order to know the working pieces, to know what I need to make it go and to make it sell. And it worked in my favor that way. I didn't realize at the time that that's what I was doing, but it all seemed to like work the way that it should.
So what?
I learned business because, you know, when you're young, you're just like, oh, I want to design, I want to create, but you really have no idea that there's a process of sourcing fabric. There's a process of making patterns. There's a process of cutting that fabric and the draping, all the little pieces that you don't really consider. You just always look at the product like, I'm gonna make that. It's gonna be that.
And they're gonna love it.
Yeah, exactly. So I literally learned the business from a lot of different angles, and it was great because in the process, while I was in New York, I also did wardrobe for Usher on his tour for the Confessions album. So that was a whole nother aspect of seeing, you know, how another side of the business. So it all just seemed to, I guess, work the way that it was supposed to.
Yeah. So what would you say, I'm getting a little farther into what I planned, but what would you say is the one thing that you didn't realize would help you in terms of styling and design? Like what business aspect? I know you said, yes, you learned sourcing, you learned inner workings, but what do you think gave you a leg up? Like what business practice that may not be taught that you learned in styling that actually helped you in terms of when you started your business and design? Was it the
It's
showrooms and knowing that, like, how did the showroom, knowing your showroom inner workings help you with sourcing and making fabrics and selling?
uh,
Did you sell?
it, it it's so many things. From an aesthetic point of view, I think the importance of finishing and just making sure that what you're giving somebody, it's not just for picture's sake, but when they flip it inside out, it actually looks quality, because I've been on that side where I had to be the person to present a garment.
Right.
And a lot of things don't have hanger appeal. They look better on, but you still want to be able to present the best option to a client. And a lot of times you don't have the time to say, oh, but when you put this on, this little string goes here,
Right.
and it does that. So just being able to present something of quality, because I've been in that situation where I feel like it would work, but when I'm standing here with it on the rack, it looks crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that part was beneficial. And then also, I guess, just organizing and like learning that it's okay to delegate. Because with wardrobe styling, there was a lot of moving parts. Like, I was the main assistant in New York, but Tamika had someone in LA, and then she had another person, her administrative assistant, in Atlanta. And so when I did go off on my own, I already knew that I was going to have a lot of moving parts too, and that I needed to have help. Because when I first started, it was just like, oh, I'm going to do the rhinestones. I'm going to add rhinestones to that jacket. And then I'm going to run over here and I'm going to go get you the perfect shoe to match it. And then I'm going to match it with your shirt. And I was doing all of these things. So it taught me how to delegate, and also to keep meeting and like interviewing people, because in that process, you learn.
Right.
You learn. So when I decided to finally transition, I kind of had created a niche for myself as being a stylist that would design. So it was a natural thing to kind of transition, and I got a job that completely like kicked my, you know what?
Yeah.
And it kind of forced me to make a decision as to what I preferred and where I got the most joy, because you're going to commit so much time to it. So it's just like, if I'm going to sacrifice this family time and all these things, I need to make sure that I at least am doing what it is I want to do.
Well, that's good. So that was the next question I was going to ask. So what made you decide, like, now is the time to start so in 2014 you started your first steps of opening your atelier shop? And what made you decide to do that, and what business practices did you put in place after, being in the styling world for so long, and then opening up something that's so custom and so concrete? What business practices did you start? I know you were talking about building a team. What did you start first?
Well, I came to LA in 2010 for a job that I thought was going to be maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I ended up being here for 6 months. So it's kind of forced to get an address in LA. That was never the plan, because I am totally obsessed with New York. But I was able to see the fashion district here, and there were certain things that were appealing. And just as far as like getting things made, it was an easier navigation, and it made more sense financially if I was going to go into design, because things were more affordable here. As far as business practices, when I started working with TLC, this was later down the road, because I just kind of evolved and made the decision to do design, and there were no real systems in place. But when I started working for TLC, their manager kind of forced us all to participate in this project management tool.
Oh.
And so it was really helpful just to see where your time is being spent and where you're falling short. And it also, you had to be held accountable, because the numbers don't lie. So it would tell you at the end of a project, you were 80%, productive. Or if the whole ship sank, it kind of tells you where the problem was.
Yeah.
So that was really eye-opening for me, especially when it came to like charging people, because I love to do the most tedious things. Like, so if it's rhinestoning, if it's adding studs, like I enjoy that. So a lot of times I wasn't considering, like, you just spent 12 hours on that. And I'm like, take it, wear it. It's great. Don't worry about it. I enjoyed it.
But doesn't mean you can't get paid for the things you enjoy.
No, and it's just like, ma'am, you're not 18 anymore. You have to charge people for that. You got a whole situation that you have to pay for.
Yeah, yeah.
So that project tool was really helpful from a business aspect, and just kind of creating a routine for myself. Because what I'll say is, in styling, every day was so different. Because one day you might be dressing an R&B singer. The next day you might have a client like DMX who just needs, he's just not going to wear a shirt. He just needs a belt, some great jeans, and you might have to like rhinestone a dog collar or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then you might have a singer, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like a Tony Braxton who requires a gown. So every day was different. And for the first time when I decided to design, I had to create a routine for myself. And I fought it because I was just like, I'm not a girl. We just live. We fly by the seat of our pants.
That's what we do.
Right. Throw me a problem. I'll figure it out. So I had to really develop somewhat of a routine, and that became, make sure that, I do my little 5 deep breaths in the morning. I make my coffee, I walk the dogs, and then I walk to work, and then I kind of go through what's on the schedule for the day so I can be effective in doing the delegation to tell people what's going on and when the deadlines are.
Well, that's good. That's
so I got a little more organized.
Yeah, no, I believe that, because it's definitely something I had to learn.
Yeah, I fought it.
It's exactly. So with your building business, what things did you wish you had learned? I know you mentioned time and routine, but is there anything that you wish you had learned while you created your atelier that you now know and has helped you with your business practices?
I mean, even prior to that, even just coming up in the ranks, you work under someone else, then you kind of inherit their business practice. So what I would say is that I wish I kind of would have sought out more mentors to kind of get a different perspective, because there's always more than one
way to do something.
And then you can kind of grab the things that you love from each person and their work environment, and then create your own. So I think that I kind of, because the ball was rolling, I was really busy when I was an assistant, then I was really busy on my own, that I never took the time to properly like set up shop. And another thing that's just it's not so business, it's like a life thing. It's that you have to have integrity.
Yeah.
And although you're really passionate about what you're creating and the art and all of that goes into it, you have to be realistic as far as time and what you're capable of. Because I remember there was a moment where I had, I think, 3 or 4 people going to the Grammys one year, and I was still in the midst of the stylist that designs. And then I was working with Willow, and she would travel with anywhere from like 6 to 45 kids at every job.
Wow.
And I was greatly overwhelmed.
And
staff. And you have to keep your integrity no matter what, because even though you give yourself the pep talk, like, this is a job that I would kill. I love this job. I love everything perfect for me. If you don't have the time and the team to execute at a certain level, you have to say no.
Yeah.
So I had a process of like learning that the hard way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And now I don't have about it. It's like, I love this. This sounds great, but I can't.
Yeah. And saying no is one of the saddest things to learn, but also the most empowering thing I've realized. And I'm still working on it, but it's definitely one of those things that I think a lot of people need to hear more and more. It's like, it's okay to say no, even if you want to do it. Like, it's okay. It's okay to be realistic. I love that. So how did you build your team? Like what are you looking for? Like how did you look for your team? I know that's a huge thing for us out here in the creative world of like creating people who we can lean on. What did you look for?
That's it. I don't know that I looked. I was lucky in the beginning when I first opened my business. I was kind of forced to do it. I got a tour, a 50-cent tour, and I was still kind of working out of my house because business wasn't, I was still transitioning, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? The process of me having to like talk with stylists who in the past might have been my competition. Now I'm telling them like, I'm here to help you. I'm your
Yeah.
ally. And they're like, mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about
You're not
that
coming
process.
on my set. So it was a while before people like took it serious and that they would buy into it and we could like support each other. So there was that process. But I worked with Jonathan Logan out here in LA. He's kind of like how 5001 Flavors is in New York. They do a lot of custom leather.
Okay.
5001 is responsible for all the leather outfits of the 90s and everything coming from New York that you see now that's custom pretty much. But he was here in LA, so like a lot of the leather that Usher was wearing or Bobby Brown was wearing back in the day, Cisco, remember with the dragon leather outfits?
Oh, I love those outfits.
Yes. Jonathan Logan made a lot of that stuff, and while I was working with Tamika, I met him. And so he was like kind of my go-to in LA before I started making things myself. I would go to him and say like, I need a blue leather jacket. And he would create it for me because he had his studio set up. So I learned a bit of the custom process from him. But long story short, one of his sewers no longer worked for him. And I ran into him on the street. Ran into him on the street and he was like, I'm not working there anymore. If you need any help, I'm still doing like part-time work. And it was like in the next week, I got the call about the 50 Cents tour. And I was like, I need you. And I literally, I went and rented out a space. I didn't have a chair. Wow. He brought the sewing machine from his garage because all I had was my little Singer that I would carry on set with me. And we had to borrow a chair from a neighbor and we started our first leather jacket for 50 cents.
Wow. That's amazing. And those are the things I feel like are important to hear and know. So you started with him. Did you add any other people? Like who else?
I did some interviewing because I needed, an assistant because I had like a styling assistant, but I needed somebody who kind of knew fabric and knew construction. And if I said, go to the store, we need overlock needles that do the difference between a single needle and an overlock needle. You know what I mean? So I started to interview, and I ended up getting another sewer through that interview process. And then I also hired a part-time pattern maker. Because a lot of times my jobs would overlap and a lot of times they were 24 hours, 48-hour deadlines. So jobs are overlapping. Like I would start with the patterns in the morning. And usually the sewers would be working on something that I cut the night before. Right. So I work on patterns, they sew, and then I would start drafting or sketching for the next project. And then I would have my pattern maker to come in the evening to double check my work and or start on whatever was next.
That's great. That's really great. So eventually you decided that recently, of course, that you wanted to do ready to wear line. What was that transition like from atelier to, how did your mindset have to change for that thought process?
I just noticed that a lot of people would like send me DMs or people would say to me in conversation like, oh, like I needed something for this thing, but I know you only do famous people. And I'm just like, I never said it just happened.
It just happens to be all.
It just happened that way. And then some people will reach out and be like, I know this sounds crazy, but I kind of want you to make me. So I was like, there's nothing crazy about it. I'll make something for whoever wants it. It's
Yeah.
just that, you know, if you're looking for a stretchy gown, I'm probably going to tell you to use Michael Costello downstairs because that's his thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like leather. I like denim. So it's not that I don't do things for regular people. I'm a regular person.
Right.
And these celebrities are regular people. But some people would say that to me all the time, and I didn't realize that was kind of like a notion that people just like took on and they believed in, and that was never my intention. So my thought process in doing that was just to be able to offer something to everybody and offer something affordable.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, and it's hard for people to get that concept. I know I've spoken to so many designers who are like, yeah, Beyonce likes it too, but even Beyonce has, you know, regular clothes. Like,
yeah. And just like them, you know what I mean? I work with whatever budget is there, especially if it's a cool project, something that I want to work on. And if it's something that I don't, then usually I try to assist you in finding the right person for it.
That's really great. That's amazing to hear. So, and now that we're in shelter in place, how have you been pivoting? I know obviously you had to soft launch your ready to wear line, which I saw some of the pieces, they're dope. And you want to add some more to it, but what have you been doing with how you're pivoting through the pandemic?
Oh girl, can we have real talk now?
Yeah, right?
Honestly, I don't know what the future will be. And honestly, this thing hit me rather hard and rather early. Because usually if I don't have a client that has some major New Year's Eve performance or something like that, then I'm starting my year in the red, period. So usually there's award show season and then there's festival season.
Yeah.
That's where my year picks up, and that sets the tone to if we're going to have a great year or a not so great year.
Right.
So when they told me that Coachella was looking shady and then South by Southwest was canceled, I was like, okay, my year's shady. Right? You did not see any posts from me like 2020 is going to be my year, because I already knew, no, pick another one. Pick something. So I was quarantining before quarantine was a thing.
Oh, wow.
Like, okay, you gotta kind of reserve what you have because this is looking weird.
Yeah.
So I was already being very, very modest around here.
It's really great that you knew to do that, though, based off of what you've been hearing in the industry. So you don't know what's going to happen. What are your hopes that will happen?
Here's the thing. I feel like this whole thing has changed me, because I thought about, of course, you know, you go into like that me phase of like, well, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my business? And I'm still unsure about it. But what I did realize is that a lot of the things that I was making, they have no purpose in a situation like this.
Yeah.
So that was a tough pill to swallow, because at the same time, you want to be able to maintain business. You want to be able to maintain your lifestyle, maintain yourself. But then you can't really be pushing a crystal denim jacket that's $1,000, and people are worried about if they're going to be able to buy groceries.
Right.
It makes no sense. So that was something that I had to like digest and process. And then I didn't want to be one of those people who were making masks out of butterfly fabric.
Yeah. But it's not necessarily you. Yeah.
No, and and there was a moment where I was like, okay, well, hospitals and people need it. So I did end up doing a face shield, and that's like the only thing that I've really been selling, because I just feel like at least it's something that's useful during this time.
Yeah.
And if you ended up with a unicorn or a butterfly mask and you're a man of a certain age that's not really into butterflies and unicorns, you can use a face shield to cover it up.
Ah,
And you have double protection. And it's also for just the stubborn kid that's not buying into the whole virus thing. They have something that you can wear it around your neck and it's easy. And with everything that's going on with police and everything else, it's just something that you can have with you.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's my contribution to what's happening. And I think moving forward, I don't know that I'll go back to doing business the way that I did it before. I've had the time to really sit with myself. I'm spending more time with my family, and I realized that I missed a whole lot, you know what I mean, chasing my dreams. So now I'm kind of figuring out what the new dream looks like and how it will allow me to take care of myself and be there for the people that I love, because I wasn't always able to do it.
Yeah, that's really beautiful to hear, honestly, because I feel like that is one of the best parts about the unfortunate thing that is happening, is that we have time to rethink and we have time to reset and think about what is important to us and what we ultimately want and how to restructure it.
Yes.
I don't know that anybody's ever had time to do. It's like either you keep going or somebody makes you stop. But the fact that the world is stopping is like a whole nother like reset that you can do together of like, this is what I actually want. So that's great to hear. I love it. It's great to not know, honestly. It sucks, but it's great to be in a place of searching and rediscovering. So thank you.
Yeah.
So as we finish up, you kind of gave us a little bit, I always ask people about the routine. You kind of gave us a little bit about that already, because I honestly am a huge believer in successful people have routines. So I love hearing about them. And I know you said you wake up early. So about what time do you wake up? And then, I mean, obviously now is probably a little different, but what is your set routine? Okay, let's go now. What is your routine now?
My routine now is I wake up at I have 2 wake up times.
Yeah.
I usually wake up at about 6. And if I'm not feeling it, then I'm usually up at 8 for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm up. I put a pot of coffee on. I feed the puppies. I walk the puppies. Come back, drink coffee. And before I get out of the bed, though, I started my 5 breaths for sure.
Yeah.
And that I kind of thought that I was doing it before, but it was like a lot of times I'd be under like stress of getting to my office, and so I missed it. But I had a couple people who were close to me that had like the virus when we're first sheltering in, and like that was just a whole thing, and it was just like it's so hard to breathe.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, like I lost her for like 4 days because she was just like, I have no breath to talk to you. So it was like this constant texting and trying to check on her. And then I was just like, you know what? I got to be able to like center myself before I even get on the phone with her. Like I need to make sure like I'm centered. And so I started doing my super 5 deep breaths, because literally everybody is not capable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that just became a thing for me. Every morning before I jump out of bed, I do that, make the coffee, take care of the dogs, feed them, walk them, and then I come back, have my coffee. And I started a dance class for my family.
That's awesome. I love hearing this.
It started off of us just like laughing at each other, but it was a way for me to stay connected with them without me asking, like, you have a fever? What's going on today? Who's that at the door? Why are you letting people in your house?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was a way for me to like have eyes on them without, you know, being the crazy California girl with the crystals and the candles. because my family's from Detroit, so they're quick to be like, "Oh, you are so weird."
It's so great.
So I started that, and it came from like D Nice doing Club Quarantine, because I was just in here dancing by myself.
I love it.
I love to dance, but I literally never got to go out because I worked so much.
Yeah.
So it became like you dance at home when the feeling hits you.
Yeah.
So I just hit them and I was like, I'm gonna start a Zoom. Like, will you all just come in and it'll be kind of be like a dance party, but a workout. And so they started really strong, and then people would just call and laugh at everybody else who was actually dancing. And now I've invited some of my friends, and like I'm literally addicted to it. Like I start my class at 11:30, so I'm literally addicted to it. And like, so that's something that I'll definitely like keep even long after this is over. So
I love that. I
don't know. I might be designing workout clothes after this, because like,
hey, we need it.
I'm obsessed. Yeah.
I love that. I love hearing that. And there's always ways to like find new loves. I think that's what I love about it the most, is like, there's always discovering yourself and the things you love more.
Yeah. I literally haven't made a commitment to a workout regimen since I lived in New York. That was 10 years ago.
Wow. And
now, I would go and do yoga sometimes, but yeah, now I'm dancing every day. And like, don't ask me to do nothing between 11:30 and 1, because I'm in here sweating to the oldie.
I love it. I love it. So are there any like practical tools, and it can be with dance, it can be with anything, that you use to like help improve what you do, your mindset, anything? Books, texts, apps, practices. I know you talked about the 5 breaths, which I am going to adopt into my own life, because that's amazing. But yeah, is there anything, a book that you that helped you change, or anything that helped you improve?
I try to journal. I won't say that I do it every day, but I try to journal, because I also noticed, you know, I hit some hard spots when I first came to California, and I kind of went back and looked at some of my old journals, and I just realized that I complained about the same things for like years in a row.
Wow.
So when you're able to take like self-inventory, it's really helpful. So I still try to journal, you know, as much as I can. It's not every day, but as much as I can. And that helps. But I've also tried to change the focus in the journal as to like what I'm grateful for.
That's amazing.
Because I noticed that about myself too. Like, all you did was complain in these books and ledgers of years. Like, where's the good stuff?
Yeah.
So I try to do that, and that's actually been really helpful for me during this time. My favorite book is probably Marianne Williamson, Return to Love. I've read that several times, and sometimes I open it up like it's the Bible, and I just read whatever page it lands on, because she's so on point.
Yeah, I need to read that again. Thank you for that. I love that. So what are you most proud of in people in general, like just people as a, you know, community? What are you most proud of?
I would say I'm just proud of how everybody has like come together, because this whole thing has really made people focus on the priorities.
Yeah.
And so it's just been nice to see that everybody's like willing to help, and people are just a lot less judgmental and like positive.
That's good. I love that. I agree. So then what are you the most proud of in yourself?
Oh,
it's important to be able to say what you're proud of.
And this is the gift and the curse, because I'm super emotional.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I'm a natural nurturer, but I feel like I'm intuitive when it comes to people, and a lot of times I can connect and like understand things right away, sometimes without it being said. And like I'm proud of that, because I think genuine connections are great.
Yeah.
Those are the only ones that I really want to have.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and you can always tell by the people that you surround yourself with. I know we have a mutual friend that is also really great with that, and people have said and spoken your name with like genuine care. So
Oh,
you should be very proud of that. Well, thank you so much for joining us here at the Black Design Collective, getting a little insight on your life and who you really are, and so many gems in there about how to really restructure and live your life. So thank you so much for joining us today.
well,
Anything?
thank you, Queen.
Oh, thanks.
Now I feel like I want to interview you after this. So, like I need to get into your business next.
Like nobody needs to know. No, but thank you so much. I would love to keep in touch, obviously. And where can people find you to keep in touch with you?
I have my personal page on Instagram, which is Brea B Star. I held on to that. That was like B Star was the name of my company when I was 18. So I just kept that because the name stuck. But then I have Stinson House as well, and it's Stinson STINSON _HAUS on Instagram. And I'm pretty much on everything. So just look me up, say hi. Let's connect.
Check out her stuff, guys. I'm sure you've seen all of it before. You just didn't know she was the one behind it. So check it out. We will definitely have some on our page as well. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. This was great.
This was really great. Have a nice day.
You too.
Enjoy your dancing.
I shall.